Thanks for tuning in. If you have not read Genesis chapter 3, I urge you to pause this video at this time, go on ahead and read Genesis chapter 3 in the entirety, paying special attention to verses 14 and 15. I'll stay right here until you come back. Welcome back. Our memory verse for today, if you want to call it that, is Genesis chapter 3, verses 14 and 15. It goes something like this. So the Lord God said to the serpent, "Because you have done this, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." So what has happened in chapter 3 that led up to this this curse that God put on the serpent, this prophecy, is Adam and Eve have eaten from the tree of knowledge of good and evil against God's rules because the serpent deceived them. The serpent said that they would not surely die if they ate it, and there's always some partial truth in Satan's lies. Of course, they did not physically die the moment they put it in their mouth, but they did die spiritually. Their relationship with God was cut. And so after they realize that they've done that, they are naked and they are ashamed, which is in direct contrast to the end of chapter 2 of Genesis, where it says they were naked and unashamed. And they're hiding in the garden. God finds them, asks what has happened. Adam says, "It's that woman that you gave to me." The woman says, "It's that serpent that deceived me." The third chapter of Genesis contains the most important passage in the Bible thus far, and one of the most important passages that you will find in the entire Bible. It's in this chapter that we find humanity falling from a place of priority, a place of precedence in God's creation. They're now the recipient of ramifications because of their choices that have lasted to this very day. From being in a garden paradise where they only had to tend the garden, to being thrown outside the garden, not being allowed back in, and having to work the soil and dealing with thorns and thistles. Chapter 3 marks the death of mankind's perfect relationship with God, and their ability to simply walk through the garden without a concern and without a care because of their divine relationship with the Creator himself. It's no longer a reality because that bond has been broken. But it's also in chapter 3 that we have the very first prophetic word concerning a coming king, a coming Messiah, who would one day set everything right. God speaks directly to Satan, who's in the form of a serpent, and he basically says, "How dare you?" God curses Satan and tells him that his plan to deceive mankind into thinking that they were equal with God has backfired. Satan's tactics of getting close with humanity and using his seductive tactics to become man's friend have had the opposite effect. God says that instead of Satan and humanity being buddies, they will be at enmity with one another. Hostility, even hatred, will be between mankind and Satan, especially this seed of woman will be at enmity with Satan. In fact, according to this prophecy, there will come a day when the offspring of the woman will have his heel struck or bruised or pierced or crushed by Satan. And Satan will in turn have his head struck or bruised or pierced or crushed. There are lots of different versions use different words for that. But the ramifications of this curse played itself out about 2,000 years ago. You see, the seed of Satan, which really isn't his physical seed. He didn't have physical offspring. It's his spiritual offspring. They plotted to destroy the seed of the woman, the seed of Satan, those people that did not want God's children to be reconciled back to him through the Messiah. They sought to kill the seed of the woman, the Messiah, and in doing so, Their objective was to have him hang on a tree, um, have him hang on a cross until he died. And that's exactly what happened. Um, Now, an interesting note while I was doing my research for this video is that as of the filming of this video in October 2021, there are only two pieces of physical evidence that there was ever a crucifixion 2,000 years ago in the Roman Empire. Sure, we have lots of documentation of that, firsthand descriptions, literature, even government documents talking about it. Josephus talks about it. But actual physical evidence of that we can put our hands on and actually touch, that kind of evidence of crucifixion, there's only two pieces. Only two pieces. In 1968, a man was, the remains of a man who was buried in Jerusalem were found, and he had obviously been crucified about 2,000 years ago. And in 2007, the remains of a man who was crucified in northern Italy were found, and he was crucified also about 2,000 years ago. The interesting thing about both of these skeletal remains that tell us that they were crucified is that it's the exact same evidence in each of them. They have one piece of physical evidence that they both share, and here's where it is. The nail that was used to nail their feet to the cross actually went through their heels and was still in their skeletal remains. That nail that anchored them to the cross pierced their calcaneus bone. I don't know if that's how you say it. Calcaneus. And I don't have any reason to believe that the Christ was any different of having his heels pierced with this nail. And because of this pierced heel, because of being crucified, because of the resulting death of the Christ, Satan is the one who was defeated. He thought that he was defeating the Christ, when in fact it was through the death of the Messiah that the atonement for the sins of mankind was made. Because the Christ died, humanity was reconciled back to God, and Satan's execution writ was signed. Satan was put on notice that you just lost. And that same nail that pierced the heel of Christ is metaphorically the same nail that went through the head of Satan, that destroyed Satan. So is Satan still around? Yes, he's still around, but he's been put on notice. He knows that he's defeated, and that is wonderful news for us because we know who defeated him. So what is the focus of Genesis chapter 3? If we had to sum it up, it's basically this: the choice of Adam and Eve to eat from a forbidden tree in order to gain knowledge. It broke the perfect relationship between humanity and God. Their decision to believe that lie, their decision to not trust God's warning, severed that bond between the Creator and the created with a dissolving agent named sin. And that is what Genesis chapter 3 tells us. But it also tells us that there will come a day when Satan's worst nightmare is going to come through, because he thinks that he's going to be crushing the seed of the woman, when in fact the only thing he's doing is hurting the heel of the seed of the woman, and in effect it's crushing his own head. There's also one point that we would do well to contemplate every time we get a chance. Of course, there's one fact that should constantly remain on our minds, and we should reflect on it throughout our entire lives. And it's this: that even though through the life of Adam we received death, it's through the death of someone else that we receive life. And of course, that someone, we all know who it is. That's Jesus. Thanks for tuning in for today's short little video. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, I would appreciate it if you did that. Go on and hit the like or dislike if you don't like the video. Leave a comment. Do me a favor, ring the bell so that you can be notified of the next video that comes out. I really do appreciate every comment that you make. Thank you so much for watching. Be blessed.